Hey, everybody. I am so excited today. I am excited every day that I get such incredible guests, and I'm so grateful for today. Grace, my good friend Grace, please introduce your wonderful self to the audience today.
Well, good morning, and I'm Grace Killelea, and I'm the CEO and founder of a leadership development firm called the GKC Group, and I'm based just outside of Philadelphia.
Just outside of Philadelphia, that's great. And of course, I did a little research. We've had a couple of conversations, and you have some incredible things. A lot of listeners know that confidence is one of the key pillars of this podcast show, and you focus on that. You've written a book on that. You've done a TEDx talk on that. You work with women in building their confidence. You have so much value to offer. And the reason why, what I'd like to unpack a little bit today is there's a lot going on with job transition. There's a lot going on with, women and men, but, we're having a tough time deciding what to do, how to do it. And I know you have a ton of advice. I watched your TED Talk, and I am going to link it in the show notes because you speak to taking the jump. Let's talk about how we can best guide those of us who are in a difficult time in trying to make a decision.
Sure. And I so appreciate you asking me to chat with your audience today. So a couple things. I think we've talked earlier. You keep hearing about the Great Resignation. A lot of thought leaders are calling it the Great Disruption because we're really at an intersection of the last couple of years, people now recognizing that remote work or hybrid work is an option that might never have been available to them in the past because companies just weren't even willing to consider it. And I also think that what I would call the pressures of the last couple of years, and certainly we're not completely on the other side of it, and global events are keeping us all riveted and worried in all candor. But what we're seeing is people are less willing to work in organizations that don't connect with them. And there's some research that just came out that talked about how much people value. They're willing to even make less money if they feel connected, if they feel valued, respected, and that there's some flexibility for them in their workforce. So some of the drivers that are having, particularly women, sort of rethink about their work life. They're all coming, there's this intersection, right, of that happening. So here's the thing. I'm all about being in a better environment and making more money and feeling respected. All those things are, of course, critical. But I do get concerned when people don't have a plan. So I think you have to ask yourself what your why is. Why am I leaving, right? And am I running from something or am I going to something? So if you are in a toxic environment and you're saturated and you can't do any more, then leaving may be the option. Okay, but what are you going to? So I think, Francesca, part of the critical conversation is what's my intention? Right?
Yeah.
So confidence, I'm good at what I do. I feel like I add value. All those things are critical, but I also want people to have a plan. When I left a 30-year corporate career, I had money in the bank. I had been planning to not have an income for a while before I started my business. And, everybody's getting advice, follow your bliss. And I have said this for years, you can follow your bliss, but you still got to pay your mortgage. Yes. So how are you going to make a living and make a life, right? Those two things have to be in the equation. So having a plan, I think one of the things where confidence comes into this conversation is understanding your strengths. What do you have unique to offer? What are your core competencies? I know what I'm good at, but then also be willing to look at a little bit of the inventory. What are my gaps? Not to keep you from going, but so what are the objections that I might hit? Well, I don't have, enough financial experience. I don't have enough experience in marketing, whatever it is. Right. So confident people have a real sense of their abilities, right? And they know what their inventory is. And does that help answer that question?
Yes, it did, because number one, you have to have money in the bank and you have to have a plan. I know from personal experience, that's what happened with me too. I left corporate as well. And I knew that I was going to do something on my own and I needed to have savings. So we need to wrap our arms around what we have. And I love how you also touched on, we have certain skills, and perhaps you're in a job position, putting aside that it may be toxic, or maybe you're doing something that you no longer want to do. So don't run from the job, right? Realize what you like to do, what you're good at, because we do have innate talents, right? And maybe they've been pushed aside because you've been given additional responsibility because somebody else. So it is a step back in thinking, not step back, pardon, just a timeout and thinking about, well, what is it that you want to do? And that's perfectly okay. And my next point is, it is a great time to look. It is the employees market, right?
100%, 100%. I mean, the truth is, there are remote options that didn't exist before. I mean, I've known people that said, listen, my employer wants me to go back to work. I can do X remotely and that works for me. Or other people who've said, oh, no, get me back into an office because that's what I prefer. So I'm seeing the work disruption, it's the re-landscaping of what we thought of as, listen, I came up, I'm 63 years old. I came up, working retail and telecom, and there was no remote. If I worked from home, it's because I was sick. And, there wasn't even an option. And now I run my entire company virtually. So we have reimagined and really taken if you think of the world as a snow globe, we've shaken it up and said, what's possible here, right? The thing that I would say though too is, if you have to, and you or you're already in a position where too late now, I jumped and I don't have a ton of money in the bank, then one of the things that I would say is, then that's leaning into your network and connecting with people who maybe either I left a job many years ago, more years than many probably people have been alive, left a job many years ago without a plan. And I lived on my 401k money. And I will tell you, everyone will tell you that's an unmitigated disaster and don't do it. And you know what? It probably would have been better if I hadn't done it. But what I learned about myself and where I ended up, I ended up the senior vice president of a Fortune 20 company. So in the scheme of things, and that happened many, many years ago. And that leap took me out of an industry and into another one. Now, I worked 3 part-time jobs to keep the lights on while I was looking for a permanent role. So you can make it work. If you don't have to, don't. But if you've done it, don't give up on yourself either. I've screwed it. The worst thing you can do is start second guessing the choice.
Yep.
And I talk a lot now, Francesca, about the new next, because there's no normal anymore.
That's right.
If you're in this position and you're either left or leaving, or how about somebody's making the decision for you? You've been laid off. That's a real thing too, because companies are saying, well, you know what, with this remote workforce, I can get cheaper labor overseas and your job's been eliminated. Whatever that handprint looks like, don't stop. You can catch your breath, but you can't stop. So look around and say, what am I gathering? I'm gathering my skills. I'm gathering my network. I'm going to call people maybe I haven't talked to in 3 years and say, can I have a cup of coffee with you, even if it's virtually, because I need to get back my network going again. Most people, here's the other thing. Here's the secret that we forget. We know it and then we forget it. Most people want to be helpful.
Yes.
Most people want to do you a solid. Most people will take your phone call. Most people will say yes. They may be able to say yes today, but they may be able to say, even if it's a year from now, can we get together and do X, Y, Z? So I have been incredibly blessed my entire life to have people who've just said yes more than they've said no. And don't forget the value. And by the way, when someone does it for you, pay it forward.
Right. That is such a great point. And that it's exactly why you've heard more yeses, in my opinion, is because you have been that go-giver. You have been a part. You've just been open to helping other people. So we've set up a nice scenario here in that you answered the question whether they're losing their job or they've decided to leave, the bottom line is have a plan, feel it out, and think about the value that you have to offer. And I love the TEDx talk. I want to bring that back for a second because you said something about your superpower, that you have a superpower, that you're afraid every day, but you jump anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that.
I think one of the biggest things we think is that people aren't afraid. Like I'm the only one who's afraid. I'm afraid all the time. I mean, I don't walk around with my heart and bouncing in my throat, but I question myself. Is what I do good enough? Am I, did I add value? Maybe they needed somebody younger. I mean, that inner critic becomes the driver, right? What I have learned to do is I tell my inner critic to sit down and shut the hell up. And then I go, right? And sometimes, it's a home run. Sometimes I hit a single and sometimes I strike out, but I keep getting up and I keep trying because I know that cumulatively over time, it's going to get better.
That's right. That's right. And that's absolutely the right attitude to have. It's going to get better. And we need to have that attitude today more than anything else. So I just so love that. So what if someone's suffering from imposter syndrome? You said that kind of like, is that the same as the inner critic, you would say, or is that?
Yeah. 100%. The easy vernacular is imposter syndrome. And there's research that says women don't have it, but I've been a woman for 63 years and I know a lot of women and I talked in front of thousands of women. And I will tell you, it is not unusual for us to have a voice that is small and it makes us stay small. And it is not good enough, smart enough, pretty enough. You're too fat, you're too short, you're too old, it's too late. You pick the whatever. And that becomes, and in the work that I do, I call it the GPS of your life. And if you're going somewhere, right, you don't pick up your phone and go, I'd like to go the longest distance. I'd like to hit a pothole. I'd love to run out of gas. Can we make that happen? Well, your inner critic is in fact programming junk into your GPS. So if you start to replace I'm a failure, right? I'm a failure with I learned something. It's I can't do it. I can do hard things. If you start to change the language, you start to then accelerate your direction. You start to be more intentional about where you're going. So whether you call it an inner critic, I call it the GPS of your life, whether you call it imposter syndrome, it doesn't matter. Whatever your voice is, internal, or by the way, you may have an external voice. You may have somebody toxic who is telling you, and I will share with you very briefly, I had a disastrous first marriage. And one of the things that happened in my marriage was my ex-husband would tell me, you're not funny, you're not as good as you think you are. And when you hear that long enough, it starts to be like, it's like you're soaking it in.
Yeah, you penetrate it.
And you start to doubt yourself. So whether that voice is somebody else's, and I honestly think that for women in particular, social media can be a toxic voice, right? I don't look like this. I weigh too much. I'm too thin. I'm too old. I wear glasses. I have a funny nose, whatever. When we're using somebody else's mirror or somebody else's voice to be our reflection, we lose. So to find yourself, to have your own GPS is, you know what, I follow someone I admire a lot, and she talks about love yourself most. Not love yourself first, love yourself most. And when you start to say, I've got this, I can handle it, I can be scared, but I can still keep going. When you start to talk to yourself in that way, it changes the trajectory of your life. I really do believe that.
I do believe that. And that is so helpful and useful. It's a mindset, Grace, and it's a constant practice, whether you have to put up a Post-it note in your mirror to remind yourself every morning, good morning, beautiful, or whatever it is that you need to do. And it is an awareness. Is it the inner critic or is it the outside coming in?
And by the way, I have a love yourself most Post-it on my computer screen. I do.
I
look at it every
love
day. Every day. Yep.
That is beautiful. What a great summary. So, and all of these incredible presentations that you do, Grace, because you do keynotes. What is your most favorite article of clothing or accessory, by the way, and how does it make you feel?
So I actually wore one today. I wear a bee. I don't know if you
Yes.
can see it. I have a bee pin on today. I also have a bee on my watch, which is just on my watch handle. Bees are the symbol of the impossible because they're aerodynamically not supposed to be able to fly. Their bodies are bigger than their wings. So bees fly, even though aerodynamically they're not supposed to be able to. So they have become the universal symbol of the impossible. So I wear a bee. I have earrings. It's always jewelry.
Yes.
I have rings with bees on them. I have earrings. I have necklaces. I have my watch bands. My watch band is the easiest thing because I wear my watch every day. But I usually have a bee pin on, and it reminds me that anything is possible.
I love that. What an incredible intention every day. So I so enjoyed this conversation and I feel like I could talk to you all day. But if someone else wanted to continue the conversation with you, Grace, where's the best place for them to find you?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. Okay. And I have an unusual last name. I think you'll share all that with your listeners. But if you send me on a note on LinkedIn, I'm happy to connect.
Wonderful. I will do that, Grace. I will put your contact information in the show notes. You've been an absolute joy today. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with the listeners. I know they're going to love it.
Well, thank you for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.